The market for eco-conscious gear is saturated. Look at almost any new outdoor company, and you will see the same playbook in action. A logo featuring a pine tree or a leaf, a few heavily edited photos of misty mountains, and vague promises about protecting the places we play. When every company adopts the same superficial aesthetic, they all blur into a single mass. This creates a high cognitive load for buyers, meaning their brains have to expend extra effort just to figure out what actually makes a product different. Faced with that mental friction, most people simply tune the messaging out. People possess a highly attuned radar for this kind of marketing. We instinctively recognize the difference between a corporation that uses a green color palette as a prop and a brand whose entire existence is rooted in the wild. Attempting to simulate a connection to nature while operating like a standard retail machine fails because it violates human instinct. To stand out, a brand has to build its foundation on different principles. To understand those principles, we have to look at the biophilia hypothesis. The biophilia hypothesis is the scientific concept that humans have an inherent, precognitive biological need to connect with natural systems. This timeline shows human evolutionary history closely intertwined with nature, right up until this sudden spike representing our shift into modern industrialized living. That departure creates a deep psychological gap. When consumers buy from a nature-inspired brand, they are often subconsciously trying to bridge that exact gap. They are searching for products that satisfy a biological craving for the natural world. To survive in a saturated market, you have to stop treating nature as a visual aesthetic and start aligning your origin directly with human biology. Triggering that biological connection begins the moment a customer learns why your company exists. A sterile corporate mission statement written by a marketing team fails to build trust. Compare that to a handwritten journal entry documenting a gear failure near the summit of a mountain pass. The origin might be a multi-day trek that exposed the need for a better tent, or a childhood memory of foraging a specific botanical plant that now serves as your primary ingredient. When you share specific, personal details about your origins, you create immediate emotional resonance. It bypasses the natural skepticism buyers have toward advertising because it reads as an authentic human experience rather than a sales pitch. Authenticity is not a result of boardroom engineering. It is excavated directly from a genuine foundational experience outdoors. A compelling origin story is an excellent hook, but on its own, it isn't enough. To build credibility, you have to prove you understand the environment you operate in. You need to become an ecosystem expert. This requires radical transparency about the materials you use. Simply printing a list of ingredients on the back of a box is no longer sufficient to earn consumer trust. This diagram shows the molecular structure of a single thread of merino wool. By breaking down how the material biologically regulates temperature, or by explaining the hydrology of beeswax in a skin cream, a brand proves technical competence. And this flowchart tracks that same material's entire life cycle. Publishing quantitative data like a carbon footprint report or a deep dive into your supply chain shows customers the exact impact their purchase makes at every stage. Combining deep scientific expertise with radical transparency provides the evidence consumers need to verify your claims. This moves the brand into the position of an authoritative guide. That biological connection also needs to extend to the digital spaces where your customers shop. This is the core of biophilic design, the practice of translating our innate preference for nature into the architecture of a website. Instead of rigid geometric grids, developers can use biomorphic forms and fractal patterns. Biomorphic forms are shapes that evoke living organisms, like the curves of a leaf or the flow of a stream. Fractal patterns are complex, self-repeating shapes found everywhere in nature, like in ferns or river deltas. Because our brains are hardwired to recognize these shapes, using them in a digital layout reduces cognitive friction for the user. The same logic applies to color. Rather than relying on a generic earth tone green, a brand can pull hex codes to build a Pacific Northwest rainforest palette, utilizing deep greens, slate gray, and mist. You can even incorporate auditory biophilia into video content. By replacing stock music with high-quality recordings of non-human organisms, like birdsong or wind, you can subconsciously relax the viewer. The digital experience should function as an intuitive, natural environment that guides them forward, rather than a digital billboard that interrupts them. As a brand matures, its strategy must evolve. The goal is to transition from a one-way monologue broadcasting at an audience into a dynamic, two-way conversation. The narrative should not end with the founder's initial journey. It needs to expand into customer expeditions. When users share their own high-quality photos and stories of your gear surviving in the wild, they provide the final proof of the product's utility. This map illustrates how a brand can foster community action. Companies encourage this by organizing local eco-challenges, interactive trail maps, or events where users catalog local species. This interactive network creates a continuous feedback loop. The community returns that energy with loyalty, driving organic growth. Nature-based branding is a functional philosophy. It is a system for cultivating a resilient, living ecosystem rooted in our biological connection to the wild.